To this District Planning Committee on Thursday the 21st of August 2025. I'm Councillor Phillips, Chairman of the committee, and for the benefit of people in the gallery and people watching online, I'll make a few introductions. On my right is Solomon Ragutu, our legal advisor for today. On his right is Steve King, our Senior Planning Officer. And round the corner is Anne Biggs, the Assistant Director of Planning. On my left is Councillor Sweatman, my Vice Chairman. And in the corner behind us are members of Democratic Services who will be organising the technology and taking the minutes today. And in front of me, round the tables, are members of the committee who will be discussing and making the decisions this afternoon. So now if we can move on to the agenda, item 1, to note substitutes in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 4. Councillor Cherry is standing in place of Councillor Wood today. Welcome to our proceedings. Item 2, to receive apologies for absence. Apologies from Councillors Wood and Councillor Prescott. To receive declaration of interest from members in respect of any matter on the agenda. If members have any declarations to declare, please could they press the pad to indicate. Right, I see no declarations. To agree by general affirmation the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 17th of July 2025. Are members happy that I sign those as a true record? Agreed. Thank you very much. To consider any items that the Chairman agrees to take as urgent business, I have none. So we now move on to the substantive part of the agenda. The first item is DM 250445, land at Colwell Farm, Lewis Road, Haywards Heath. And I will ask Joanne Fisher to make the presentation, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So just to draw members' attention to the update sheet, apologies for the lateness of this being sent to you this afternoon, but you should all have copies on your desk. So there's been a few updates and additions. So I'll just quickly draw your attention to some of them. Paragraphs 2.31 and 13.29 has just been reworded in part. So that the first line says, it is your planning officer's view that having regard to paragraph 11D of the NPPF, that the adverse impacts of granting consent would not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits of this development as highlighted within this report, many of which will be in any event be mitigated for as far as it is possible. And then in the executive summary and the planning balance and conclusion, 2 additional paragraphs have been set out to be inserted. The first one about the sustainability of the location and how it does weigh against the proposal in the planning balance. However, it's considered the sustainability of its location does not sufficiently tip the balance when applying paragraph 11D of the NPPF, in that the location would not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. And then an additional paragraph referring to the weighing against the development is the loss of trees, including a number of trees to create the access. But again, in terms of the NPPF, these have not been identified as ancient woodland, ancient or veteran trees, and replacement planting, albeit not of the same size, can be carried out on the site to mitigate the loss. As such, it is considered that the loss of the trees does not sufficiently tip the balance when applying paragraph 11D of the NPPF, in that this would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. There's an additional letter of representation concerning the hedgerows, hazel dormice and the damage to the hedgerows, and about a licence which is set out in the update sheet and is also on the file. And there's a further late representation which has been submitted that members should have received yesterday concerning planning matters in respect of heritage, landscape, trees, hedgerows, ecology, BNG and the planning balance. So in respect of section 12.180 in terms of biodiversity, there's points raised in there and a response concerning hedgehog and deer on the site, and also about the hazel dormice and the hazel dormouse evidence that was found on the site outside of the survey location. And whilst that's acknowledged, the council's ecology consultant raised no objection to the proposal on ecology grounds, and they advised that and whilst hazel dormice have been identified within the red line boundary, and the proposal would include the removal of hedgerow, mature trees and bramble scrub, that a licence for hazel dormouse will be required prior to the commencement, and a copy of the licence would be required to be submitted to the LPA. And then turning to Appendix A, Condition 6 at the moment refers to a licence in respect of bats. That is a typo, apologies for that. It is actually requiring a licence in respect of hazel dormouse. So that just needs to be updated. So we are requesting for the licence to be submitted. And then in Appendix B, the Highways Authority have just included a summary to their detailed comments that are in Appendix B of the 7th of July, which does make clear that they've considered the proposal and viewed it against paragraphs 115 and 116 of the NPPF, and they are satisfied that the proposal would not result in any severe or otherwise unacceptable highway safety impacts, and as such, no objection would be raised. So apologies for the length of that. So if we just turn to the presentation. So outline planning permission is sought with all matters reserved except for access for up to 80 dwellings with associated landscaping, open space, infrastructure, vehicular and pedestrian access at land at Colwell Farm, Lewis Road and Haywards Heath. So the red line, as shown here, identifies the application site which is being considered with the access here. So the details of the site and surroundings are set out in section 9 of the report. However, some details, just to highlight, is that the site is outside of the built-up area boundary of Haywards Heath and therefore within the countryside. And the site comprises of 3 irregular fields, parcels, separated by belts of mixed hedges and trees, with trees and hedging on the boundary of the site as well. So I've pulled up a constraints plan just for you to see sort of constraints surrounding the site. So the access into the site would broadly be here through this blue hatched area, which is the Lewis Road Conservation Area. This is the application site surrounding here. The green hatched area to the south shows the ancient woodlands which are outside of the application site. The red building here shows the Grade 2 listed building of Colwell House, which is to the northeast of the site. And where this dot is here, that's North Colwell Barn, which has been identified as the non-designated heritage asset, which is to the northwest. And this purple line, which runs along to the west and north to south, is the public right-of-way. And just for clarification, this is the application site here. So as I said, it sits in the countryside. So just turning to the illustrative master plan, the details of the proposal are set out in section 10 of the report. This is an illustrative plan showing how the site could be developed with the means of access located here onto Lewis Road. And we are only looking at the means of access at this outline stage. Indicatively, they have shown that there would be the creation of a pond to the south of the site, with this green asterisk showing a proposed pumping station, and the yellow asterisk here shows the indicative location of a play area with a central sort of spine road going through the site and housing coming off of it. So we've got a parameter plan here which shows the access into the site off of Lewis Road, which is being sought at this stage. And the parameter plan shows the land use of the location of housing as the orange hatched area in these 3 parcels. The vehicular access as this brown dotted line and this black dotted line here. Pedestrian links through as these pink areas. And the green infrastructure or undeveloped area is the green hatched areas around and through the site itself. There would be a single spine road going through the site. Due to the sloping nature of the site, indicative site cross-sections have been provided showing properties on Lewis Road. Properties on Lewis Road here, and here, and then the sloping nature of the site of how the development could be carried out indicatively at present, and showing that they would be using the levels of the site, and so that the houses would be at a lower level than properties onto Lewis Road. So, as I said, the site access and the access into the site is forming consideration of this application. It is to be located to the south of Lewis Road, between North Colwell Farmhouse and number 90 Lewis Road. This would be a simple priority junction with a pedestrian footway to the western side of the access road into the site, and the provision of a dropped curb to either side of the Lewis Road, with tactile paving to provide a pedestrian crossing over the footway, which is on the opposite side of the road. As detailed in the report, there are a number of off-site highway works proposed, set out in paragraph 12.50, and there's a couple of plans just showing some of these. So there would be an off-site highway works proposed forming an uncontrolled pedestrian crossing from the northern side of the pedestrian footway of Lewis Road back across the southern side near the junction at Birch Close, to allow pedestrians to cross over Lewis Road to then rejoin the footpath on the opposite side of the highway, which then carries on up to the Birch Hotel roundabout. And then another off-site highway works is to the east of the site, further down, just before the turning to Snowdrop Lane here. At present, there is a sort of lay-by area, and the proposal off-site highway works would seek to convert this existing lay-by into a 2 metre footway and lay-by to allow Royal Mail vans to get to the post box as well. It's just some photographs of the site. This is taken from Lewis Road, looking towards the site, looking east, and then looking west towards Haywards Heath itself. Photographs within the site where the access is proposed, just beyond the trees and the vegetation screening here is Lewis Road. That's looking down towards the site, and that's from the site looking back towards Lewis Road itself, with North Colwell Farmhouse located here. And then some photographs within the site. So this would be sort of the provision of the proposed green space, looking towards North Colwell Farmhouse, and just views around the site. Various views around the site that members may have seen when they were out on site on Monday. So the assessment of the application is set out in the committee report, but I will flag up some main points to members. As you're aware, the legal framework is set out in section 11 of the report, and members will know planning legislation holds that the determination of the planning application shall be made in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. In terms of this application, the development plan comprises the district plan, the site allocations development plan document, and the Haywards Heath neighbourhood plan. The NPPF is an important material consideration as it sets out the government policy on how the planning system should operate. The principle of the development is set out in section 12.2. The site falls outside the built-up area of Haywards Heath as defined by the adopted district plan. As such, the site is located within the defined countryside. The proposal is for major housing development in the countryside and is not allocated in the district plan. While the report details that the proposal complies with many policies of the development plan, when viewed as a whole, there is a conflict with the development plan. That is not the end point. You also have to look at other material considerations. As members know, at the present time, the Council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, and this means that the tilted balance of para 11D of the NPPF applies, which is set out in full in para 12.16 of the report. The key point for decision making is that where there is no relevant development plan policies, or there are policies which are the most important for determining applications are out of date, which is the position we are in, we should be granting planning permission unless any adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against policies in the framework taken as a whole, having particular regard to key policies for directing development to sustainable locations, making effective use of land, securing well-designed places, providing affordable homes individually or in combination. The adverse effects have to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits, which is a tilted balance, and this is how the application has been assessed as set out in the report. In terms of the actual details, these are within the report, but I will go through a number of the matters briefly. So in terms of transport, this is set out in starting at section 12.27 of the report. The local highway authority has no objection to this access point or the associated off-site highway works. The test in both policy DP21 of the district plan and paragraph 116 of the MPPF of the development only being prevented or refused on highway grounds if the residual cumulative impacts following mitigation would be severe is a high bar. And your planning officers agree with the comments of the local highway authority that the proposed development would not result in a severe impact on the highway network that would justify a refusal of the planning permission. In terms of landscape, this is dealt with starting at section 12.65 of the report. It is clear that with any greenfield development, there will be a significant change at the local level from that of an undeveloped landscape to housing development. In order to meet the housing needs of the district, there will be a need to develop greenfield sites across the district. Due to the council not being able to provide a 5-year housing land supply, policy DP12 of the district plan and policy E5 of the neighbourhood plan remain important but attracts reduced weight at the moment. Further details of the proposed landscaping would come forward at the reserve matters stage, together with the details of the layout, design of the proposed dwellings. However, the submitted LVIA set out a number of mitigation measures to reduce the potential impacts of development, as set out in paragraph 12.79 of the report. In terms of heritage assets, this is dealt with starting at section 12.89 of the report. As previously identified, the Lewis Road Conservation Area lies to the north of the south site and includes the access. There is a Grade 2 listed building of Colwell House to the northeast and a non-designated heritage asset located here of North Colwell Barn to the northwest. The conclusion in relation to the listed building, the conservation area and the non-designated heritage asset where there is harm, officers view that the harm is classed as less than substantial in the MPPF and is outweighed by the public benefits in this instance, even when you give that harm significant weight. When considered altogether, it's considered that the harms identified to the 3 heritage assets does not provide a strong reason for refusing the development proposed under footnote 7 of paragraph 11 of the MPPF. In terms of design, layout, accessibility and sustainability, this is dealt with starting at section 12.113 of the report. The illustrative master plan shows the amount of development can be satisfactorily achieved on the site, and full details would be submitted in any subsequent reserve matters application. The proposal would provide 30% affordable housing and be policy compliant. Residential amenity has been considered from 12.146 of the report, and from the illustrative plans, officers do not consider that there would be significant harm to the existing occupiers, but this would be reassessed through at the subsequent reserve matters stage when the final layout is submitted. In terms of trees, this is dealt with starting at section 12.169 of the report. It is acknowledged that there will be a loss of trees, including 15 to be removed to facilitate the site access. The trees to be removed have been identified as category B, C or U trees. All category A trees would be retained. Policy DP37 of the district plan supports the protection and enhancement of trees, woodland and hedgerows, encourages new planting. The policy remains important, but does not include an absolute bar to tree removal. The proposal would provide the opportunity for replacement and new planting, and this would be dealt with at the reserve matters stage. For biodiversity, this is dealt with starting at section 12.180 of the report. There is no objection from the council's ecology consultant. They are satisfied that there is sufficient ecological information available to support the determination of the application. The Council's ecologist supports the BNG assessment, BNG habitat management and monitoring plan, and the BNG metric. There will be a loss of 0.72% in habitats and a net gain of 441.54% in hedgerows on the site. As such, BNG will be delivered on and off site. Drainage is dealt with starting at section 12.228 of the report, and there is no objection from the West Sussex Lead Local Flood Authority to the proposed means of drainage. And infrastructure is dealt with starting at section 12.253 of the report. Members will note developers are only required to mitigate the impacts of their development, and all requests for infrastructure contributions are required to meet the Community Infrastructure Levy, known as the SIL regs. The proposal would meet DP20 of the District Plan and the SIL regs. In terms of the overall assessments and the planning balance and conclusion, this is set out in section 13 of the report. I've gone through the tilted balance, and ultimately it is the officer's view that in this case the adverse impacts of the proposal do not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. Weighing against the proposal is the sustainability of the location, the loss of trees, including mature trees, to form the access into the site, and the less than substantial harm to the designated and non-designated heritage assets around the site. The benefits are set out in the report and are of the proposal providing up to 80 new dwellings with 30% affordable housing and the economic benefits of the development. These are very important consideration. In conclusion, all of the harms taken together are not considered to outweigh the benefits of the proposal. For these reasons, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions, the update sheet and the completion of a satisfactory legal agreement, including securing affordable housing and infrastructure contributions. As such, there is a dual recommendation on this proposal, so that if members are minded to approve the application, if a satisfactory planning obligation has not been completed, the application could be refused for that reason. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, to move on to public speakers, can I stress that public speakers, including members of town councils, are limited to 3 minutes. As long as I can see the clock on the screen over there, I will try and indicate when you have 1 minute left, and after 3 minutes I will ask you to sum up in one final sentence, please. The first speaker is Councillor Alison Reeves from Haywards Heath Town Council. If you'd like to take your seat, and the 3 minutes starts when you start speaking.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. My representation today is on behalf of Haywards Heath Town Council. The Town Council opposes this development in the strongest terms and asks that the District Council Planning Committee does so too, and votes to oppose a development which does not deserve to pass. With the current status of the Mid-Sussex Plan, it is welcomed that Mid-Sussex District Council is now, and should continue in the future, to work with the developers of sites included in the existing District Plan, and those sites that were put forward for inclusion in the emerging District Plan. However, this site, which is opportunistic and speculative, should be resisted to send a clear message to speculative developers that their site is not welcome, and that Mid-Sussex District Council will resist speculative development on a greenfield site which is outside of the built line in Haywards Heath. The approval of this application would set a dangerous precedent and lead to applications coming forward for other major sites adjacent to the town. Refusing the application demonstrates to the community that MSDC is fighting to protect the rural character of Haywards Heath, and indeed Mid-Sussex generally, through its planning system. Specifically, the Town Council objects to this proposal, and I wish to reiterate the Town Council Planning Committee comments, which are presented in the covering report. 1. It is not an allocated site in the Haywards Heath Neighbourhood Plan, and is contrary to policies E5, built line, and E9, protection of the character of the locality of the site. 2. It is not an allocated site in the Mid-Sussex District Plan 2014 to 2031 and is considered contrary to elements of policies DP26, DP34, and DP35. 3, this is a site which falls outside the belt line of the town. 4, the proposal constitutes development within the green belt around the town.
1 minute left.
5, the proposal would be detrimental to the neighbouring Lewis Road conservation area. 6, the proposed highway access to the development at this point on Lewis Road, which is part of the busy A272, would generate an unacceptable increase in vehicular traffic entering and leaving the highway to the detriment of highway safety. 7, the proposed highway access between 2 existing established properties in Lewis Road would be detrimental to the amenities of residents living there. 8, as well as being partially comprised of ancient woodland, the site is home to numerous species of endangered, vulnerable and protected wildlife, including hazel dormice, adders, multiple species of bats, hedgehogs, great-crested newts, this is in fact listed as a red area site for this species, deer and badgers. Disturbance of hazel dormice, protected bats and badgers is a criminal offence. The development would destroy vital habitat, feeding, nesting and hunting grounds for these species.
Could you wrap up in 1 minute, 1 sentence, please?
And the Town Council, in conclusion, we ask that the committee upholds the good standards of planning policy decisions made hitherto by the Council and rejects a defective application which would otherwise set a dangerous precedent. And it can be argued, if passed, would leave serious grounds for residents to appeal. Please reject the proposal.
Thank you very much. Right, the next speaker is Ingrid Marson, who's speaking against the application. Again, you've got 3 minutes and the time will start when you start speaking.
Thank you. Councillors, I will be focusing on the ecological impact of the proposed development. The 3 fields in question have not been farmed since the 1980s and before that were lightly grazed. There are no paths or roads through the site and this has led to the land rewilding. The hedgerows bordering the site are over 200 years old and there's also ancient woodland bordering the site. An expert ecologist from Kew says the site is like a nature reserve, and this is confirmed in the developer's report, which found hazel dormice, 11 species of bats, including barbastelle bats, slowworms, grass snakes, rare birds and badgers. These are some of the animals that will die if this development goes ahead. Hazel dormice are one of the rarest animals in the UK. They were found in 4 locations by the developers. This survey is incomplete, as I captured webcam footage of a dormouse in a new location right next to the planned access road. Getting video of active hazel dormice is so rare that my footage was broadcast by ITV Meridian News. I hope the next story won't be Mid Sussex Council approves destruction of rare hazel dormouse site. Last winter, the developers cut through the hedge in 9 places without seeking a licence from Natural England, as is required by law. The law states that disturbing hazel dormice without a licence is a crime with a penalty of up to 6 months in prison. This alleged crime has been reported to the police, who visited the site and opened an investigation. Planning law allows councillors to assess whether proposed mitigations are credible and whether they are achievable in practice. I believe the recent history of hedge removal without a licence shows the mitigations cannot be delivered as promised by the developer. Officers have put full weight on the mitigations. We ask councillors to reduce that. The developers propose to erect a temporary fence to protect the hedgerows.
1 minute left.
Thank you. A hedgerow surrounded by acres of bare earth with no wildflower and insects will mean the loss of almost all the site's wildlife. The developers cannot meet the planning requirement of 10% net biodiversity gain. Instead, they're offsetting the ecological destruction by buying off-site credits. The MPPF states off-site compensation should be used as a last resort and only if other sites are not available. There is no evidence the officer has considered this guidance or whether other sites are more appropriate. We ask the committee to correct these errors and refuse the application. I suggest that planning and environmental law requires you to do this. I end on hazel dormice. You hold the future of hazel dormice and all the other wildlife in this site in the palm of your hands. Please protect them. Once they're destroyed from this site, they're gone forever. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Right, the next speaker is Ian Howard, who will also be speaking against the application.
Councillors, we request you refuse this application, and further, we say that you can do so with the confidence your decision is fair and correct in planning law. We ask you to consider 3 core points. First, we say that officers have incorrectly applied the tilted balance and have put insufficient weight on our adopted plan. Second, we say officers have put insufficient weight on the harms created by the scheme, one example covered by the previous speaker, and at the same time they have overweighted the benefits. This is contrary to the adopted plan and the national framework, the NPPF. Third, the application fails the National Development Framework requirement for sustainable development. I will cover each point briefly, but I also refer members to the report that you will have received from Richard Buxton solicitors detailing these points. The tilted balance applies when the plan is out of date. The word tilted is chosen deliberately, as it speaks to a gradient effect. In this case, officers have not applied a gradient. They've treated the tilt as being a binary test, and we ask you to correct this error. If you do so, you can put more weight on the adopted plan policies, and this alone justifies a decision to refuse. Second, officers have failed to weigh properly the harms and the benefits of the scheme. Richard Buxton wrote to you yesterday with detailed analysis, so I will not cover it further here. But we ask you to assign the correct weight to the harms and benefits. Not correct in some abstract sense, but correct in the sense the weight accords with the adopted plans and with national policy. Finally, please consider if this scheme does meet the overarching requirement for sustainable development. This application fails to meet the biodiversity net gain requirement. It will destroy habitat with the highest possible ecological value, the net gain only achieved by buying off-site credits. And even then, only the minimum gain is achieved. Thank you. Officers put full weight on the biodiversity net gain, despite it being the bare minimum, and using credits that national guidance calls, I quote, a last resort. The NPPF has 9 paragraphs on sustainable transport. In this proposal, all journeys will be by car, the site has poor connectivity to walking and cycling, 0 public transport provision. Despite this, officers have put full weight on the transport proposal. 176 trees will be cut down, 176. The tree officer at the council, who wasn't quoted today, said these cannot be compensated for by replanting, but the planning officer determines this is acceptable, contrary again to national policy on habitats. So we say that the conflicts on biodiversity, on transport and on trees mean the scheme fails the test of sustainable development. Finally, Ms Fisher advocated well
in one sentence, please.
For the officer report. We have arrived at a different conclusion. The decision here is not for me, it's not for officers, it is for you to make. As you weigh these matters, please use your local knowledge of this beautiful county and come to a decision that is in the best interests of our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, the next speaker is Nick Bellingham, speaking on behalf of Miller Homes.
Thank you, councillors. Throughout the consideration of this outline application, Miller Homes have worked hard with your officers to agree an appropriate framework for the future residential development of the site, 80 new homes. We have worked positively with your officers and consultees both during and before the consideration of the application to respond to concerns and demonstrate that the development is acceptable. Miller Homes' vision is to deliver residential developments that create a community where people and families can thrive on the edge of the largest settlement in your district. This vision is guided by a careful analysis of the site's context, which ensures the delivery of high-quality development comprising a balanced mix of private and affordable homes. Miller Homes take pride in delivering design quality and community value, resulting in schemes that are both attractive and enduring. Miller Homes distinguishes itself from standard volume house builders, where it's focused on placemaking and community integration. The proposed scheme, with its provision of much-needed family homes and policy-compliant levels of affordable housing, represent an opportunity to establish a development of genuine quality and local value. With regard to the application preparation, a small section of hedgerow was removed to facilitate access for drainage investigations. This work was undertaken under the supervision of Miller's appointed consultants. The proposals will be required to provide a 10% net gain in biodiversity, which includes the provision of new hedgerows, tree planting and meadow creation. The B&G on site will result in no net loss on site, and that will be topped up in a legitimate way using off-site credits. The proposals will also incorporate suitable buffers to retained hedgerows and the ancient woodland. The proposals before you have been informed by detailed ecological surveys, subsequently reviewed by your council's ecological advisors, who have raised no objection.
1 minute left.
The proposals for access to the site have been developed to make sure they are safe for both future and existing local residents. Detailed and independent road safety audits of the access proposals and proposed highways works have been undertaken, and whilst not a requirement of the Highways Authority, Miller Homes are committed to progressing an application to reduce the speed limit on Lewis Road to 30 miles per hour. Having carefully considered the proposals, West Sussex Highways have raised no objection on highways grounds. The proposals also result in significant contributions to local infrastructure, including local schools, libraries and local GPs and police services. Contributions will also go towards improving local highways infrastructure, such as local cycleways in Haywards Heath. Miller Homes are pleased to be able to provide 80 new homes, including 24 affordable homes, to help meet the desperate need for housing in the district. I'm sure you will all know someone that is struggling to buy or rent their own home. House prices remain out of reach for most residents in your district, with most of them needing to earn over 11 times their earnings to own a home. Supporting this proposal will help you deliver acutely needed new homes, and we respectfully ask that you support your officer's recommendation to approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, our last speaker regarding this application is Councillor Clark. And for the benefit of members in the gallery and people watching online, the ward councillors are not restricted to 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I may repeat some of the things that have already been said, but it's important I make those points. And I'm also apologising on behalf of Councillor Kenny, because he's not back till tomorrow and he'd like to have spoken today, and he's supporting what I'm saying. I've been a town and district councillor, I'm not a town now, but I have been, for 15 years in Franklin's ward. Most of my inbox from the residents in the Lewis Road has mostly been about speeding, bad parking, volumes of traffic in the Lewis Road. And I can't do much about the volume of traffic because it's the main arterial road linking Haywards Heath, the Ring Road, east and west. It's the main road. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that later. I'm not supporting this development for some of these following reasons. And these are the ones that have already been repeated, but I feel they need to be repeating. It's outside the town's built-up area. It's not in the town council's neighbourhood plan, and they strongly objected to this application. And also, it's not in the Mid-Sussex plan. And I have concerns about road safety. And the road, the A272, which is the main, as I said earlier, east-west, this road will only get busier. And with the help of the Haywards Heath Town Council and Councillor Kenny, we carried out a traffic survey using a SID. And I think everyone here knows what the SID is. I don't need to explain what the SID is, if that's possible. Between the 10th of April and the 21st of April. And I sent you all the data electronically, so I presume you've seen the data. Now, it was set up facing the 30-mile-an-hour zone, but it recorded the 40-mile-an-hour going past it back into Haywards Heath. So the data was showing the amount of traffic. And I just wanted to, for an example, the 10th of April, on the between 15:30 and 18:30, when it's rush hour, children coming out from school, 1,370 cars use this road. In a full 24 hours, it's 5,000 plus. And the average speed of these cars going through the 30 miles were all over 30, and that's going through the 30 mile. And in that period, some of the speeds were 60, 50, well, this is the highest maximum speed, 60, 54, 53, 47, 50, 49, 45, 48. And that's coming from the 40 mile or the 30 going on that road. So even restricting it to 30 miles going back the other way, I believe we'll still have a problem with speeding in that road. Right, if you can just bear with me. And when I visited the site with the officers, they did actually say to me they were quite concerned with a one-way out. That was there another way out? Because they did feel that it could be difficult, but obviously that hasn't come through. I'm not a highways expert, but with the development along the A272 east and west, I would predict that the traffic will increase probably 10% on year, and traffic over the next 5 years could lead to at least 7,000 movements a day. And using this busy stretch of road, they will make it harder for existing families, never mind the further 80 houses, trying to access this road. We will monitor this over the next 3 years as well, while I'm still a councillor, this traffic, because it is difficult. Now, most residents won't walk. They will use their cars. They will be coming out of that road using their cars. There's no, to get to a hospital, doctor, surgery, shops, walk to the railway station, work, railway station, pick up the kids from school. Most will jump in cars and drive or get taxis, and it will be a nightmare accessing that road. I get so many people who are coming down single drives saying they're delayed getting out onto that road. I want to talk about the footpath because that was mentioned, because it's also in the walk to school, but the north footpath, you have to cross over onto the north road, and I just want to correct one thing the officer said. You can then go to the town. You have to cross over the road again because the path finishes, and you have to cross over to the south side, which is a slightly wider footpath. But sometimes that footpath's blocked. That's another complaint I get, and people walk in the road. I've had, and I think the day you visited the site, I drove down there, didn't visit it with you, but I drove down there, and there was a lorry parked on the pavement, and people would having to walk into the road on a dangerous bend. So I'm very worried about people having to walk that route. There's no cycle path, and I don't think there's anywhere. I know they mentioned they pay money to cycle paths, but I don't think there's anywhere you can put a cycle path down the Lewis Road. Now, school places. They said that the school. Bear with me. The school places. I think the school is Northlandswood Primary School is a local school, and I looked on gov.uk and checked out the places, and then I had an up-to-date call from West Sussex today giving me the actual information that these children that are going to walk to this school are going to struggle because there is only one place. This is 25-26, one place in year 1, 2, 5, and only 3 places left in the whole school. So I will see it won't be walking to school. People will be driving to other schools. There isn't the capacity, and Haywards Heath is one of the hot areas where they need more school spaces. Okay, sorry, I lost my place. I'm not against house building. I've had over 600 houses since I've been a councillor built in my ward. I've got another 400 coming elsewhere, but this one should be turned down because it's poor connectivity, and this is what I'm arguing, and it's not sustainable. And I'll say again, it's outside the town built-up area, not in the town's neighbourhood plan, not in the district plan. I've also had road safety concerns, which I've mentioned, but it should be refused. It should also be refused on the eloquently put by Ingrid and Ian. We should provide who have provided strong evidence why we should be considering not considering it as a site. We need to be protecting the wildlife, especially the endangered species, and protect some of our last green spaces and corridors. And these are our green corridors around our town. Once destroyed, gone forever. And I'd like to thank Chairman Committee for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of myself and Paul Kenny, the residents, and the wildlife that can't speak, and against this development. Please do the right thing, reject this speculative, opportunist development. It's in the wrong place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Joanne, would you like to respond to any of those points?
Thank you, Chairman. In terms of the highways, I will address that. So, as I earlier said, the Highways Authority have considered the application and are satisfied. In highway safety terms, they have considered the impact to the wider highway network, and they are satisfied with that as well. They have considered the automatic traffic counter speed survey as well. SID survey, but obviously they consider that the automatic traffic counter survey that has been submitted by the agents are more appropriate, but they are satisfied about the visibility splays in and out of the site and the vehicular movements. Moving on to that. I've covered my points in about ecology. With regards to the footpath, can I just clarify? So I had advised members that as part of the off-site highway works, you've got the application site a bit further down here where they are providing the tactile paving to cross to the northern site. But I did advise as part of the off-site highway works that to the northern side of the site there would be another crossing to provide to the south site, which highways were satisfied with. I won't go on and go back, but obviously the ecologist is satisfied with the details that has been submitted and provided. I think at the moment that's all I've got to say. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Joan. Right, so open the debate to members. Please indicate if you wish to speak. Councillor Avery.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Yes. We've been discussing inside this chamber and outside of it the effect of the stalling or worse of the district plan and how that will increase the number of speculative developments as a result. And I think this, which is in front of us, is exactly one of those. I think if we were to approve this, it sets a dangerous precedent with development around the town boundaries and inside our beautiful open countryside. There's 4 or 5 main things, and they've been touched upon already as the reasons why I can't see the tilted balance is in favour of this. The site was never included in the district plan or indeed the neighbourhood plan. Number 2, it sits outside the built-up boundary of Haywards Heath. It's not in a sustainable location. The only access to it is via a motor car. The damage to the landscape is contrary to DP 12 protection enhancement of the countryside. The bypass, the Lewis Road is extremely busy. When I went to see the site on Tuesday, it took me a full 10 minutes to cross the road, and I took my life in my hands to do that. And then the ecological impacts, which are incredible, really. I mean, felling of 176 trees and the loss of native species habitats, including bats, slowworm, dormice and grass snakes, and a loss of hedgerows, which really maintain a huge range and diversity of wildlife. I think in this case, the harms totally outweigh the benefits, and I can't really see how the officers come to the conclusion that the tilted balance is in favour of development, because it so patently isn't. And I'm afraid I just can't vote for this one. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Councillor. Steve King wishes to make some comments.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a brief point before the sort of debate really gets going. I think Councillor Avery is quite correct in that this application is arising and the recommendations arising because of where we are with the district plan and the 5-year land supply. So I think that's quite right observation, and I expect that there will be more of these types of applications coming forward to this committee and the planning committee. But the point I'd want to make in relation to that and the reference to precedents is that, as we know, each application does have to be determined on its individual merits, and therefore what I'd strongly advise the committee to do when they're considering this application is solely to focus on this application, because a different site will have different circumstances, etc., etc. So I wouldn't get into the issues regarding precedent, because you've got to look at this application on its individual merits. I think that's all I'd want to say at the outset to try and inform the debate, Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Henwood.
Yes, I would like to address this very much on the tilting the balance, to look at what benefit would be provided and what harm would be provided. I would like to address all the issues of harm which would be addressed, that this is against our district plan policies. If we start out with the very first one, district plan DP 12, protect and enhance the countryside, DP 26, protect open spaces and trees and character of the area. DP, let's go on, DP 34, historic housing area. This is against all of these. This is the harm side against what you're going to get out of that. We got DP 12, which is landscape. DP 37, trees and hedgerows, 176 trees to be chopped down, as we said. DP 38, ecology, which was very well described by one of our speakers. That's all to do, that's on the harm side. And I noticed that we've also got on 11.16, we're still looking at the weight of the harm. If we go on to 11.16, it says minimal weight can be given to our new proposed district plan 2021-2039. Minimal weight, we're still weighing up the balance, and this is the harm this is going to cause. If we look at that, which I've got copies of, by the way, minimal weight, DPS1, which is adopt a 20-minute access to a village or to a community. This was part of our proposals. DPN protects existing biodiversity. DPN4, protect and enhance trees and hedgerows. This is all giving minimal weight. We're adding to the harm, is my argument. DPC, protect and enhance the countryside. DPC, DP3, only under specific circumstances, new houses in the countryside. DPB2, preserve and enhance listed buildings and their settings. DPB3, preserve and enhance conservation areas. DPT1, transport. Communities should be accessible 20-minute by walking, cycling, active travel. So, Chairman, I would like to say the harmful list on this side against what are the benefits? One benefit, 80 houses and affordable housing. Okay, we have not got a 5-year housing plan, but our new district plan has not been rejected. It is on pause. So if you weigh all up the harmful against the benefit, I'm sorry, it tilts against refusal of this application, Chairman. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, councillor. Does anyone want to say anything about the balance at the moment, or should we continue? Yeah, okay. Steve King.
Yeah, I mean, very briefly, just in terms of the emerging district plan, I'll call it that, that does have such minimal weight at the moment that you'll have seen, and you'll have seen from all of the reports coming to committee for months, that we're not assessing planning applications against those policies, because that plan has such limited weight at the moment. It's not felt appropriate to assess the applications against those policies. So you'll see that in this report, as in all reports that come before members, planning applications are assessed against the policies in the current adopted district plan and the relevant neighbourhood plan. So I think we need to stick to that approach and assess the application against those documents, and then obviously take account of all the other material considerations, of which the MPPF is obviously a very important one, because it's a statement of the government on how planning policy should be interpreted. I think that's all I want to say on that, Chairman.
Councillor Peacock.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think there's a key element here we need to understand, and that is the fact that it's not a site selected in the current district plan update. It obviously went through the screening process, level 1 to level 2, then there's level 3. What I'd like to know is, why did it not which stage in the screening process did it reach, why it was not selected, and how that is then, because of the tilted balance, change the recommendation? Because obviously there's a process the district plan has been through consultation, it's with the inspector. I think we need to understand that. It's been said it's not in the plan. If it got to level 3 and was rejected, obviously it's nearer to being selected than if it was at level 1. So I think that's a key question we need to understand and have answered first of all.
That's a good question. Who would like to take that one? Yes, please do.
I do think, though, this is a reflection of not having a district plan, more challenging numbers from central government. I agree there's going to be more of this coming along the site. And we need to remember, I think it's over 60% of mid-Sussex land is protected or AONB or another form of protected land. So we've got a limited number of sites to choose from as time moves forward. And it's an undesirable place to be in, I think.
Please.
Thank you. So looking at the 2024 site selection paper and Appendix 4, which sets out the settlement conclusion, the site did get to stage 3 for further testing, but the conclusions for that site, would you like me to read it all out to you?
It would be, I
Yeah?
think it would be helpful.
So it got to stage 3, but the conclusions were for site 844, land at North Colwell Farm, it did include a slightly larger area as well, just so you're aware. The sustainability appraisal concludes that overall the site represents a sustainable option for allocation. The transport modelling undertaken to date for the district plan review does not indicate that there will be any showstoppers associated with the site. The HRA does not identify any likely significant effect on the Ashdown Forest SPA and SAC, subject to appropriate mitigation. In terms of air quality, there are currently no anticipated significant effects on the Stonepound Crossroads AQMA or adverse impacts on the Ashdown Forest. However, this site is not well connected to the services and facilities of Haywards Heath. It also would result in backland development adjacent to a conservation area, altering the setting. Therefore, the site does not support the delivery of sustainable communities, which is a key part of the district plan strategy. Other more sustainable sites are available for development. Therefore, it's concluded that this site is not suitable for allocation in the district plan 2021 to 2039 proposed submission.
So there we face, the officers have looked at that and then looked at the situation where we don't have a district plan and reach one conclusion, whereas residents and certain councillors take a different view. I do raise my eyebrows with West Sussex, but we all do, and we have to go with the evidence that is put in front of us. And I think the key question is, if this went to appeal, what evidence do we have to support a recommendation of refusal?
Yeah, well, I would say at this stage, if members are minded to propose rejection, obviously we would want some defendable reasons for that to be put forward today. Councillor Eves.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we went to the site on Monday. There's no pavement. One of us isn't quite as able-bodied as the others, and when we were trying to exit the site, we had to cross back over that road, and it's really difficult. You have to wait for a large gap, and you do take your life in your hands, as one of the other speakers said. So, and then we hear from Councillor Clark, you have to go along the road a bit further north and cross back to find another pavement. So the whole thing is so unsustainable, so ludicrous. There is no bus stop. So this runs counter to NPPF 110, which says there should be a variety of ways of travelling from the site. There's no rural exception housing. There's 176 trees to go. And the first one you come to for the access route there looked to me like a category A. I don't know why it says only category B and below. I thought that was a category A oak tree. So the wildlife destruction is unconscionable. So I really don't think this is a suitable site. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. I also visited the site on Monday. First of all, I parked my car in Birch Close, and of course that particular road is very, very busy, and getting out again on the way home, it did take a little while to wait for a gap in the traffic. I gather that stretch of road is at 40-mile-an-hour limit at the moment. Certainly, I would like to probably see, once this is built, we assess the speed limit on that section of the road. Because although it's straight, the cars do, and vans and lorries do travel quite fast along that stretch of road. Secondly, looking at the particular site, first one thought looked as though those three fields were enclosed around with woodland all round. So it obviously screens the existing properties on a Lewis Road and the listed building. Also the site, you're sort of waist height with going to seed weeds, I think they were ragwort, but the whole place looked as though it had not been looked after at all for quite some time. Looking on the ground, you can see obviously it's used by rabbits and I think some other scats, which was probably deer as well, but it certainly has some wildlife on there, but how valuable that wildlife, I'm not in a position to judge. Certainly it's land which is sort of not in use and certainly not valuable agricultural land. There are various reasons for and against this particular application. Certainly one should be aware of the MPPF, the fact that our existing district plan is out of date. The numbers in there are now below what was the new NPPF calculation, so we don't have a 5-year land supply. And of course, the MPPF actually says that the reasons, that there must be good planning reasons to refuse, otherwise there's a presumption to give planning permission. So I'm conflicted on this particular decision, whether to go for it or against it. So I haven't quite yet made up my mind. I'm just sort of mulling it over.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, the best I can do with this application would be to defer to refuse. It was quite a stunning experience to do that site visit on Tuesday. It's possible I might have walked across those fields 60 years ago, and it didn't seem to have changed much. It was unbelievably wild, and, you know, if it could be maintained, that'd be great. The first thing I want to take up is with the officers, just trotting out the same old lines once again, and in particular, this 20-minute access to the town. Now, I travel up and down that road by car, cycle it, and I even run it. I even have to run on the wrong side of the road where there's no pavement, on the verge as well. So, and sometimes you can cross over on the footpath to go beyond. So the speeding is a major issue, no doubt about it. Whatever the speed limit is there, it's a straight road coming out of Haywards Heath, and it's just like a Grand Prix race start. Whatever the speed limit is, it will get broken. And therefore, I would like the officers to withdraw that statement. The best I reckon you could do on that site from 20 minutes would be to get to the A&E hospital, which maybe you need it. Yeah, so going on from there, on the traffic issue, we really walked across those 3 fields, and they were tough walking. And we got to a point where there was a line of trees, and just beyond there is another local road. And it's part of this ownership of this land, I believe. And I wonder why a proposal didn't come with accessing that particular road, Slugwash Lane, as we know, which kept up to 10,000 cyclists in the London to Brighton bike ride once upon a time. So that's my consideration on the roads, the access, etc. In terms of the housing type, I was going to say on the roads, and we talk about having this tactile paving. Well, I think we need to try and understand what length that's going to be, what exactly it's going to be, and what effect it would really have. The only place I know of in Haywards Heath is coming up out of Haywards Heath towards Balcombe, and on the bend there is a sort of road which gives a bit of a rumble, but I don't know whether it really slows traffic down. So I really would like more details, and that's why I'm saying it should be deferred at the best. In terms of the housing, types of housing, I'm not convinced that we're really going to address the affordable homes.
Can I say that's not for consideration today? We're only looking at the outline.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I think I've given you a fair amount on terms of the site, and I'm agreeing with most of the speakers here, so I'm not going to continue too much. But, you know, it is that access onto the site, and there seems to me an alternative way. So I'm not discounting the site because we know where we are with the housing situation, but I think there's a good reason to refuse it on the access.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you wish to make any comments, either of you? No? Okay, Councillor Cherry.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to actually dispute a comment made by one of the councillors that this land is currently not in use. It clearly is in use, and it has been in use for a long, long time, full of wildlife, and wildlife that we need to preserve. And so I think there have been many comments made about the transport, and they're all very, very valid. But I just simply want to say that the ecological cost of this is far too heavy to justify the development of 80 houses, particularly when most of the residents of those houses will have to use a motor car to get anywhere. So for that reason alone, I do not support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you, Chairman. I think might need a little bit of counterbalance here. I believe the site is sustainable. It's a very, very desirable area. I only got to look at the other developments, the new developments that have been developed in the previous 10 years down that road. To see that, I would assess it's about a 20-minute walk to the hospital, which Councillor Clark mentioned. It's been mentioned several times, there's no highways objections. And in fact, I thought it was a very good highways report. I'm not the greatest fan of West Sussex highways, but this particular report, I think by the officer, was very good, pages 96 to 104. The mitigation, I think, is good with section 278 works. And I really like the TRO, which was mentioned by the applicant. And I believe that's very credible. And if the applicant and the county council work together, 30-mile-an-hour reduction, I think is very doable, which would be a great mitigation and a great benefit. 118-metre sight lines, that's huge in both directions. I know the road's very straight, and I know that the vehicles sort of speed down there. I was there on Tuesday and spent a long time walking up and down and crossing the road. So speed certainly is an issue, but the sight lines are excellent. If we compare the site access here, which is the main consideration of this, as it's an outline application, the application that we saw a month ago for a site which was allocated by the District Council on the Turners Hill Road for 375 houses, that was approved, and the access there was far worse than the access on this particular application. The site is contiguous with the built-up area boundary, actually, and very adjacent to it, which is a major consideration in my eyes. We've had many sites like this in East Grinstead put forward that have received consent. Scores of sites like that, small, medium, and recently very large sites. So this is nothing new. I acknowledge the ecology constraints, and clearly that's people have gone on board with that one. Infrastructure benefits, they are significant. £1.2 million, as confirmed by Mr. King in an email 2 days ago, which is £15,000 per plot. Which is at least the going rate for per plot housing for similar schemes. So that is significant. We've already heard that the site falls away, and it's also surrounded by a thick tree belt, which I don't think has been mentioned, but it was certainly mentioned in the officer's report, plus the 30% affordable housing. So the overall balance is clear in my mind that I would support the officer recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Whittaker. Councillor Sweatman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I agree. Well, I can understand the residents' concerns on this. I've visited the site and, the means of access. I've thought, well, not so sure about this. However, we have to look at what highways have said, and for any highways application to be refused, it has to be a very high bar. The reports from highways in the report. So that high bar, we do get frustrated, as Councillor Whittaker has said, on highways deliberations, but they are the competent authority and has to be a high bar to refuse. On the point of the housing part, we, as has been said previously, we have not got a 5-year housing land supply. Therefore, the relevant policies regarding to housing are considered out of date and should be given limited weight. That is fact. So what we have to look at is the material considerations going to the National Policy Planning Framework, which is basically the presumption of sustainable development. So great weight must be given to that. So planning permission should normally be granted unless the adverse effects of doing so would significantly and demonstratively outweigh the benefits. I've listened to members' comments around the table, and I think Councillor Whittaker has highlighted a few salient points there, and I tend to agree with him on this. So we'll leave it there for the moment, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bergreen.
Thank you, Chairman. I find it very difficult to support this application. The fact where we are with the district plan at the moment, I don't really feel is a good enough reason for approving a completely unsuitable site. I mean, there are other sites available. I won't go through all the reasons against. I think they're all being put very well already. But I'm afraid I couldn't support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Jan, wish to come back?
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to cover a few points that members have raised. But Councillor Whitaker covered one of the points about the traffic regulation order that's being proposed to reduce the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit to 30 miles an hour, and that has been highlighted in the report, and it would be separate to this planning application, but they have the applicants have confirmed that they are willing to progress that. A member raised about an alternative access into the site. Obviously, we can only consider what is in front of us, and the red boundary line at present doesn't cover any other alternative accesses, so we can only consider the access onto the Lewis Road at this point and as part of this application. And with regards to the oak tree that was mentioned, the accompanying tree report that is on the file does identify the oak tree within the garden where the strip of access is to go as a category B tree, which is a tree of moderate quality, estimated remaining life expectancy of at least 20 years. There's some localised decay and dead wood on it, and so it would have to eventually be removed, and so it doesn't meet the category A standing, so that's why it's at a lower classification. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, looking around the room, that every councillor has had a chance to speak. My sense that there is quite a strong feeling against this site, and I would stress that if someone is going to propose rejection of the officer's report, we would want a list of defendable positions. So I would, if anyone is going to propose rejection, I would ask them that they provide a list of reasons for rejection. So if no one else is going to speak, can I have a proposal from someone, please, either in favour or against the... Councillor Swanton.
Recommend approval, Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Whitaker. Right, could we move to the vote then, please? Those in favour of approval and those against, could they please indicate now? One member hasn't voted. Right, the vote is now closed. 5 in favour, 6 against. So the vote for the recommendation is lost. Is anyone, can I have a proposal then for the rejection of the officer's report and the development of the site, please? Is anyone prepared to?
I think sustainability is the main one.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I need a proposer and seconder. Right, Councillor Henwood is proposing. Is there a seconder? Councillor Reeves, right, could I have your suggestions for refusal, and then I intend suspending the meeting for a few minutes while I consult with the officers about that and any other points that we can raise.
Thank you, Chairman. I did list several of our district council policies that this application is contrary to. Shall I just list them?
Yes, please.
Okay, so if we start with DP 12, protect and enhance the countryside. Okay, and we get DP 26 protects open spaces and trees and character of the area. DP 38, very important, protects ecology. DP 37, trees and hedges protected. Well, that's how I can read it, I've got it here, but, and DP 34, historic buildings and non-designated, and DP 35, which, conservation, protects conservation areas. Well, I did mention DP 12, yeah. I think that's DP 37, trees and hedgerows. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, I will suspend the meeting for a few minutes while the Vice Chairman himself, sorry, it was by Councillor Eaves.
Chair, can you also take on board E5 and E9 and NPPF 110? Thank you.
Right, if you'll excuse us for a few minutes. can we cancel the vote and put the speakers up again, please? Still showing the vote up? My speaker's on, so let's see what. If I can explain what's going to happen, the Vice Chairman, myself and officers has had a discussion on what we believe are reasonable grounds for rejection and that would be defendable at an appeal. I would ask Steve King to go through those, and if members want to discuss them afterwards, I'm happy for them to do that. But this is what we're suggesting are the reasons that if members are minded to vote against the application, that these are the grounds on which we will be putting the formal notification out. Mr. King, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So in terms of the all the policies that were listed, gone through those in relation to the particular issues that they all refer to. So the reasons for refusal, and obviously we don't have the detailed wording now, but these are the headline topics. First one would be an adverse impact on the character of the area and landscape, and that's where the reference policy DP12 in the district plan and the relevant neighbourhood plan comes from. Members are concerned about the sustainable location or the unsustainable location of the application in respect of it being car dominated essentially in terms of access. So that's policy DP, part of policy DP21 in the district plan and paragraph 110 in the MPPF. So that's the second substantive issue. Third matter was the adverse impact on the heritage assets that referred to in the report. And that picks up policies DP 34 and 35 in the district plan, and policy E9 in the neighbourhood plan references that as well. And then members were also concerned about the loss of trees on the site, the number of trees that would be going, including the category B tree for the access. So that's policy DP 37, a conflict with that. In terms of ecology, that was policy DP 38, but because we don't have the support of the council's ecological consultant in terms of objecting to the application, it would be very difficult to substantiate that as a reason for refusal. So we're not recommending that would be one of the reasons for refusal. What I would say is that, as we know, all the reasons for refusal that we have to be defendable, because the applicant does have a right to lodge an appeal to the planning inspectorate. So we have to be clear that what we have is defendable. And on ecology, we've got clear advice from our independent consultant who hasn't raised an objection on that ground. So we're not recommending a reason for refusal in relation to that. What I would say is that if the applicants were to lodge an appeal, a planning inspector has to consider every issue that's been raised by all the third parties. So ecological matters would be raised at an appeal, and an inspector would have to look at that as an issue. But from an officer's perspective, without the support of our expert, we're not recommending that that forms a reason for refusal. We're content that those other 4 main headings that I outlined would be reasonable grounds to refuse the application, and we would be able to defend those should it go to an appeal. So that's all I'd want to say on that, Chairman.
Thank you. Sorry, could I just add one thing? On DP 34 and 5, you mentioned heritage, but that would also, my understanding is that would also cover the effect on the conservation area?
Yeah, the heritage assets are the conservation area and the listed buildings and,
Okay.
and the
Thanks.
non-designated heritage assets. So yeah, it covers it all.
Yeah, please. Yeah, Solomon would add something.
Thank you, Chair. I think I need to be clear that when officers were looking at these policies, they were not, they were conscious that because we don't have a 5-year supply, the council's policies do not take. There's no presumption that the council policy will be followed. What happens is that when we do not have a 5-year land supply, the council policies become material considerations, and the question is whether or not the benefits that are in the report are outweighed by the harm that will be done to these these policies. So it's a question of you members taking a different position on the weight to be given to these harms and the benefits. So this is the balance that members are doing. Members are saying that they are giving greater weight to these than officers did.
Thank you. Councillor Henwood.
I'm quite concerned, Chairman, about the ecology. I appreciate what Mr. King has said, that because we haven't got support from our ecology consultant. But I thought it was rather important that if there's an appeal made against this, that the district council must list in some manner all the reasons for their refusal. Is there some proviso that we can say that the district council expressed concern about the ecological impact? I really feel that it is important, although Mr. King said it will be considered, but my understanding is that it is up to us to bring forward all the points that we feel need to be addressed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of reasons for refusal, as I said, the local planning authority has to be able to defend each and every one of those, and we think that the 4 main areas that are outlined are defendable. In terms of a refusal based on ecological matters, the advice that officers are giving to you is that we would find it very difficult to defend that, because that's something where you're relying on quite expert advice and evidence, and the expert advice that we have from our independent consultant was that the scheme was acceptable. If the ecologist that the council asked to look at these applications thought there was a problem with this, then they would say, I object. They're giving their independent advice to the council. So that's why I say that on something like this that's quite technical, we are reliant on the expert advice that we're given. So that's why we're not recommending that would be a reason for refusal. But if an application does go to an appeal, as I've said, an inspector has to take account of all the issues that have been raised during the course of the planning application. So all of the rep letters that have been sent in during the lifetime of the application, the planning inspector sees those and will be well aware of that as an issue. But what I'm saying is I don't think it's an issue that the council would be able to defend, because we don't have the support of our expert who's provided the advice on that particular topic.
Right, are there any other comments Councillor Bush to make before we move to a vote? Councillor Reeves.
Point of order, Chair. What are we voting on now? I thought we'd voted.
No, we haven't. Councillor Henwood proposed, you seconded, that we should reject the officer's recommendation for development at this site.
We voted. We don't want to vote
No, we
again.
didn't. We voted on the proposal for the recommendation of the officer's report. That was lost. We now have to vote on a motion for rejection. Right, so we have a proposal, we have a seconder. So what we are voting on is a proposal to reject the officer's report for development of this site on the basis of the items in the district plan and the East Grinstead neighbourhood plan, and also the MPPF that Mr. King has set out. Sorry, the Haywards Heath neighbourhood plan, sorry, get the towns right. So we have a proposal, we have a seconder, so please could we move to the vote? Right, the vote is now closed. There are 6 votes in favour of rejection of the officer's recommendation and 5 against. Therefore, that is carried and the proposal for development is rejected. We will have to change, actually, no, Mr. King, you're doing the next one, aren't we? Yeah. So if members are happy, as they were, I would have a break while we were in discussion. Are they happy that we go straight on with the next application? Thank you. Thank you, Joanne. Right, so we move on to the next item, item 7 on the agenda, DN 251327, the Martlets Shopping Centre in Burgess Hill, and I'll ask Steve King to make the presentation, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. There's no updates on this one, so I'll go straight into the application. So this application seeks consent to amend 3 planning conditions that were attached to a previous planning permission at the Martlets in Burgess Hill. The purpose of the application is to make changes to the previously approved scheme. At the outset, I should say that whilst the council has an interest as a landowner, this report represents your office's views in relation to the council's role as the local planning authority. It's important to highlight that those are 2 wholly separate functions. So in terms of the site and its surroundings, I'm sure members are very familiar, but the site is in the centre of Burgess Hill, in the town centre. It's outlined in red here on the screen. consists of a number of buildings and structures, including multi-storey car park, and there's been some site clearance. The site's bounded by Church Walk to the north, and Civic Way runs round to the south and the west. Adjoining the site to the east is the Marketplace Shopping Centre, again I'm sure members are familiar with. Largest building on the site is Martlets Height, 8-storey former office building that's now vacant. Remainder of the site's at a much lower scale, although the multi-storey car park's full 4 stories but cut in to the land. That's just an aerial view of the site, so you can see some of the site has been cleared on this western side. In terms of the heritage assets that are referred to in the committee report, you've got the conservation area, St John's conservation area in the hatched area, blue above the site, and St John's Church, the red building there, it's a Grade 2 star listed building. In terms of the planning history, that's set out in section 8 of the report. There's quite a bit there, but most relevant is the extant planning permission DM 19/331 that was approved back in July 2021, and that granted consent for the demolition of the multi-storey car park, library and offices, conversion of existing buildings and erection of new buildings to provide additional retail space, residential units with undercroft car parking, multi-screen cinema, bowling alley, gym and a hotel, and various changes to the car parking and access arrangements. A lawful development certificate, as is mentioned in the report, has been granted to confirm that works have commenced to implement that planning permission. That was some demolition works, and therefore that permission is extant. So if I just go back, this is the consented scheme. So this is what has planning permission. So you've got residential element on the western side there, with the tallest element, the tower section here. Hotel in this location here with retail at the ground floor, and then the main leisure or retail at ground floor, and then the leisure uses in block B. And that's a 3D image of what has been approved at the site. So that's the scale of the building that's been approved on facing Civic Way, the taller tower, the hotel and retail element, and then the leisure and retail element there. And just some images again of the consented scheme. So that's the tallest element there on the corner, and that's a view from within the car park, looking at the retail, hotel, retail and cinema and other leisure uses. So in terms of what's proposed with the current application, it is section 73 application to amend 3 planning conditions, and the purpose of that is to make changes to the approved scheme and grant a new planning permission for a revised development. So the principal change, as we'll come to see, relates to the building that had been approved in this location. There's a reduction in the scale of that building and the uses that are within it. So in terms of the proposed plan that's before members now, this is the in effect the lower ground floor. So the residential building here, car parking at that lower level. And then in effect at the ground floor level, residential block still here, the taller tower there. The leisure element has been reduced significantly, as we can see, block B. The hotel has changed in terms of the number of rooms, but that's been done by internal reconfiguration, essentially. So that's resulted at the ground floor level with a larger area of public open space in this section here, as we saw previously, and we'll come back on a slide comparing the two. It was a much larger building on Block B. The other change, principal change, relates to the access. Previously, it was just egress. The current proposal now is that this would be both an in and out onto Civic Way. So just in terms of other floor plans, this is proposed level 2. So again, residential, the leisure use, at the in Block B, retail uses, mixture of uses on here, the restaurant uses. And this is level 3, so you can see that's where the hotel starts at level 3 on the plan. Again, residential carries on. I won't go through, don't have all of the floor plans, but residential carries on that building there. In terms of landscaping, there would be significant new planting along Civic Way, new planting within the car parking area. This is what would now be an in-out onto Civic Way, and this is the much larger area of public realm that comes about as a result of the reduction in size of Block B. So the details of the changes are all set out in the committee report in terms of the reduction in floor space, the change to the cinema and the proposed bowling alley. In terms of the elevations, these are very similar to the consented scheme. So this is the residential block on Civic Way. So you can see the upper 2 stories on the main block are set back slightly, and then you've got the taller tower, but it's the same as previously approved. Other elevations of the block next to the main residential tower. And that's the Block B, so the reduced, that's where the main change is in terms of Block B, the reduction in scale of that building. And just in a bit more detail, that's the proposed in-out access now. So that's the other main change. You've got various loading bays and taxi areas on Civic Way. Again, significant new planting, as I've mentioned, along Civic Way. And that slightly different scales, but you have them side to side, so you can see the difference between the consented scheme on the left with the much larger Block B leisure building compared to what is now proposed with the smaller building across here. So you've got the larger area of public realm in this location. As I say, the residential element and the hotel section here all remains virtually the same as the previous approval. And that's just some images of the proposed scheme from various locations. So that's the tallest element looking up along Civic Way. That's what you'd see along Civic Way. So you've got the residential element, the upper stories, as I say, set back. That's as if you stood in the car park. So this is the larger area of public realm with the new planting within it and new planting in the car park. And that's just some images of the town centre as it is now. I'm sure members are very, very familiar with that. So if I just go back. In terms of the legal framework, that's all set out in the committee report. But it is important to note that this is an application submitted under Section 73. So therefore, the decision maker, i.e. the planning committee, should confine their assessment of the application to the proposed changes that are sought as a result of amending the conditions. The principle of this development is established by virtue of the previous planning permission that is now extant. So in terms of the actual assessment of the merits of the changes, that's in section 12 of the report. I'll just highlight perhaps the main points rather than go through everything. In terms of the principal issue regarding the viability and vitality of the town centre, officers consider this scheme fully complies with the development plan policy. It's clear and obvious that the centre of Burgess Hill is in need of redevelopment, and a proposal would bring significant benefits to the town centre. In relation to the design and visual impact of the development, that's section 12.2.1 of the report. And as I've alluded to, it's important to note this scheme, you're not considering this in effect in a vacuum. There is an extant scheme that was approved under the same development plan that we have now. And that's approved and accepted the basic design envelope and the scale of the development. As I've said, the main change is the reduction in the scale of this block B. Officers consider that it remains a high quality scheme that's sought by development plan policy and is again fully accords with the development plan. In relation to the heritage assets that I referred to at the start, if I go back to that slide. That's dealt with in para 12.6.6 of the report. In a nutshell, I think officers remain of the view, as with the consented scheme, that there would be some harm to the setting of the listed church and the conservation area. But as before, that harm is clearly outweighed by the benefits of this redevelopment. And as we've seen, the scale of the current scheme is less than what the council have previously approved. So that assessment and that conclusion remains the same. In relation to transport matters, that's in para 12.4.9 of the report. The main change in terms of access arrangements is the Civic Way, the access becoming an in-out, as I've mentioned. The Highway Authority are satisfied with that. They've got no objections. In terms of the overall level of activity, the scheme is a reduction on what's been approved before. So again, there's no concern from the Highway Authority or officers in relation to the capacity of the highway network or car parking, etc. I'll just mention affordable housing and infrastructure payments. You'll see that as with the consented scheme, there are no provisions for affordable housing in the scheme because it remains not viable to provide those. On the consented scheme, the legal agreement does have a review mechanism within it so that if the scheme does end up generating more value once works start, there is a mechanism to claw some of that back, and the provisions of that legal agreement will apply equally to this planning permission. It automatically rolls over, so that's exactly the same as before. And the other main issue to mention, I think, is, well, the two main issues, so residential amenity, that's on section 12.9.5 of the committee report. As we've said, the main impacts in terms of existing residents is on the properties immediately to the north here, as referred to in the report, numbers 105 and 107 Church Walk, and there would be some adverse impact on those properties as detailed in the report. But those impacts are essentially the same as on the consented scheme, and it was found that in the overall planning balance that was acceptable, and there's no reason to come to a different conclusion now. So as I say, it's virtually the same, and it's the same development plan policies as the previous scheme was approved under. And finally, just trees and ecology. Again, there's no objection from the council's ecologist, ecological consultant on the application. The trees that would be removed or proposed to be removed are the same as on the consented scheme. So again, that has been approved and accepted by the council. What you will get with this scheme is a betterment in terms of tree planting, because you've got a larger area of public realm here, and there would be a comprehensive landscaping scheme here, and as I've mentioned, new planting all along Civic Way. So I think that is acceptable, especially given in mind the extent of consent anyway. So in terms of the overall planning balance, as I've said, the application we think fully complies with development plan policy. It is relevant, again, that the council can't demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, so we're considering the application also in that context. So that there are very clear benefits from the scheme in terms of the new housing, the regeneration at the town centre. The principle, the design envelope has been accepted. So it's your officer's view that the scheme fully accords with development plan policy and should be supported. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. Right, we have 4 speakers, and in case they weren't here early, I'd reiterate that the public speakers and the speaker from the Town Council are limited to 3 minutes. I will try and indicate when you have a minute left, and if you're still speaking at 3 minutes, I would ask you to complete your presentation in 1 sentence. The first speaker is Councillor Peter Williams from Burgess Hill Town Council. If you'd like to take a seat, and the 3 minutes starts when you start to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here speaking to you as leader of Burgess Hill Town Council. Since June the 30th, 2018, the day that Martlets Hall closed, the Town Council has borne the brunt of our residents' criticism over the state of the town. We have been powerless to influence the redevelopment of our town centre, and for too many years we have shared the growing frustration as we watched a demolition site turn into a wasteland surrounded by dereliction. Our town has suffered enough, but now, with this latest application by New River Retail to vary the conditions under Section 73, and I quote, to improve the viability and deliverability of the scheme, there is hope. We discussed this application at our planning committee meeting on the 2nd of June and resolved to support it in the hope that it comes forward quickly. We noted that several of the grander plans, such as the 10-screen cinema and 16-lane bowling alley, have been toned down to reflect the real-world changes in leisure habits. We further noted that the plans for the hotel and the mix of housing accommodation had changed for the better. In amongst all these changes was the word Aldi, the anchor tenant that holds the key word to retail success, footfall. This is fully aligned with DP2 town and village centres. You need to be aware that there has never been a provision in this or previous applications for the replacement of the public toilets we shall lose. This council will be reassured if there is a ladies' and gentlemen's agreement for the public to use toilets, for example, in the supermarket or leisure facilities, without the need to make purchases there.
1 minute left.
Finally, the redevelopment of Martlets shopping centre must happen, and soon. The alternative is grim, and further delays will not be acceptable. Our community has waited too long and deserves better. I note that in the September 2024 council papers stated that the regeneration of the town centre is a corporate priority. Burgess Hill Town Council recommends you approve this application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, the next speaker is Dan Osborne, who is speaking against the recommendation. I sympathise with you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Sadly, I'm just going to speak against, because we all want to see some progress on the redevelopment of Burgess Hill Town Centre. I think the Planning Committee may have some difficulty with this application to amend conditions under Section 73, because the new proposals offer much less benefit to Burgess Hill than the earlier ones. Economic, social and environmental considerations are all important aspects of planning for the future. That's in MPPF paragraph 8, I think. Burgess Hill will have a population approaching 40,000 or more in the not too distant future, and the economic, social and environmental opportunity this presents for such a town and its centre is not recognised in these proposals. Many opportunities have been missed. The proposals fail to meet the social needs, as for example set out in Section 7 and 8 of the MPPF concerning town centres and communities. It's because they offer a less vibrant town centre with reduced and, in my view, non-viable leisure options and without restoration of facilities such as the once busy weekly market or the community centre that was so well used and has proved so difficult to replace. The amended proposals are also weak on environment, minimal green infrastructure provision, etc. There's no affordable provision in this, and it seems to me it's not impossible that an application with no affordable, given the government's current emphasis on affordability, that such a permission could be called in. The reason I think Section 73 is a bit of a debatable way to go is that Test Valley Borough Council versus FIS sets out the most recent view of the courts on this, and officers have advised the committee that this is an alternative, revised scheme, and that's not really the same development, and to me will be outside the scope of Section 73. The government documents on the flexible use of planning permissions states in paragraph 15...
1 minute left.
Thank you. That this is an independent permission to carry out the same development. And because the facilities in, say, Block B are so reduced, it means that this isn't really the same development. And if it's going to be a viable development, some reconsideration of the proposals needs to be considered. In particular, I'd point to the bowling centre. Most modern bowling centres are 2,500 square metres in size, and they have 16 to 24 lanes as an economic minimum. There are 4 of those in Sussex. Such a centre offers much to the local community in terms of social interaction, sport and leisure facilities for families. So a 4-lane centre won't achieve those social objectives, and that's just an example of how MPPF Section 7 and 8 wouldn't be met by these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, the next speaker is Jamie Whitfield, speaking in support of the application.
Good afternoon. I'm going to set out the key points and then provide a wider summary at the end. As you've heard, this Section 73 application to amend the approved drawings is to enable the viable delivery of the proposed development. The new drawings are more refined and more appropriate to evolving market conditions. We've worked closely with officers to agree the mechanism for the changes within the Section 73 and crucially to maintain the description of planning. The composition of the consented scheme remains and is as per the original scheme. In essence, a town centre regeneration proposal combining a mix of retail, leisure and residential. However, it's the circumstances surrounding this proposal that have changed, namely improved fire regulations, fire safety, and evolving leisure and retail market forces. The proposed changes do not materially affect the outcome of the relevant policy tests for this development, and the redevelopment is supported by policy DP2 of the Mid-Sussex District Plan, policies TC2, TC3 and TC4 of the Burgess Hill Neighbourhood Plan, and in addition, the National Planning Policy Framework gives substantial weight to the value of using suitable brownfield land. These changes unlock the ability to revitalise the town centre, socially, economically and visually, again, all aligned with National Planning Policy Framework. What does this mean for Burgess Hill Town Centre and most importantly, its local community and visitors to the town? By our own admission, the opportunity to deliver long overdue investment and improvement in the town centre. The chance to deliver better choice.
1 minute left.
A greater reason to spend time in the town. And a town centre that is well placed for the future. Town centre regeneration is not easy, but we have an opportunity to deliver a varied retail offer, a leisure offer appropriate to its catchment, and new homes in a sustainable location with amenity on the doorstep. Burgess Hill Town Centre deserves positive change, and we're here to work very hard to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, the last speaker is the Leader of the Council, Councillor Egerton. And again, for anyone watching or in public gallery, Councillor Egerton is not limited to 3 minutes. Although he's assured me he's going to be succinct.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your kind introduction, although I should stress that I'm speaking in my capacity as the local ward member for Meads and Hammonds. Members, what you are part of today in your planning role is a rare opportunity to help solve what has proven to be a seemingly insoluble problem in Burgess Hill for at least a decade. Approving these variations to the existing planning permission on the Martlets shopping centre is a critical milestone in the journey towards its redevelopment. It is not the last milestone, but without this approval, the work on redevelopment cannot continue. Regeneration, therefore, will not happen. Shopping centre redevelopment is not simple or straightforward. High street shopping trends, the costs of bricks and mortar trading, the growth of online trading, investor sentiment, and changing habits means that they are complex and commercially risky ventures. These challenges are being observed throughout the UK and closer to home in Burgess Hill, which is why we are back here today considering these variations to the existing approval to make the scheme viable. Let's be clear, you are considering variations only. This is not an opportunity to add things into the approval or reassess it. The report at paragraph 12.2 makes that clear. The variations are needed to make the scheme viable. Now, the economic vitality of our town centres in the district is a key component of the 2018 district plan, and these variations are still fully aligned with policy DP2. The reduction in the amount of commercial, retail and leisure developments has created the opportunity to increase the amount of open green space. In my view, and whilst acknowledging that it has been born out of commercial necessity, the enlarged town square, together with its landscaping, is an improvement on the original scheme and increases the overall weight of policy DP26. Tree loss under policy DP37 is of relevance, but I note that this variation increases the amount of tree planting in the development, which is very welcome and provides long-term and effective mitigation as well as environmental benefits. I welcome the commitment to sustainability and the way in which the applicant is meeting policy DP39 as set out in the Cudd-Bentley report. The scheme delivers a welcome contribution to the Council's net zero ambitions in its design, material and use of ASHP across the redevelopment. I also welcome the contribution to active travel in line with policy DP21, with the delivery of cycle provision for all the residential units, as well as the significant provision of a cycle hub within the retail scheme, which includes electric cycle charging and repair facilities, as well as other active travel improvements through that corridor. Obviously, we would have liked to have seen the original development coming forward, but much has changed since 2021, and we must deal with the world as it is now, not as we would like it to be. These variations still deliver a significant redevelopment of the retail estate in the centre of Burgess Hill, as well as contributing to the district's housing need. It will help create the right economic, social and environmental climate for further inward investment, as well as increasing footfall and trade for existing businesses. The contribution to improving the vitality of Burgess Hill's town centre, even with these revisions, should not be underestimated, and I urge you to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Everton. Steve, did you want to respond to any of those, especially in section 73?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just in terms of the point about section 73, it is referred to in the committee report in paragraph 12.158. There is quite a bit of case law on what can and can't be done, but the guidance makes it clear that, and I'll quote, it's in para 12.160 of the report, that an application can be made under section 73 of the Town Country Planning Act. Can be used to make a material amendment by varying or removing conditions associated with a planning permission. There is no statutory limit on the degree of change permissible to conditions under section 73, but the change must only relate to conditions and not to the operative part of the planning permission. And what that's getting at is that you can make changes as long as the description and the overall development doesn't change completely. So this falls square within what's allowed, because the description remains the same. It's still a town centre redevelopment, residential, commercial, retail, etc. So we're quite content that legally this is an acceptable way to proceed.
Thank you. Well, I must say one of the first things I did when I became a councillor 6 years ago was go with Councillor Gibson and had a walk round of the Burgess Hill Town Centre with some of the local councillors. And I find it quite depressing that here we are 6 years later and no progress has been made. So, you know, from a personal point of view, I know the reality is that physical retail has reduced. The commercial side, the recreational side of it, unfortunately, as well, which I also regret as a keen cinema goer. So I open it to members. Councillor Reeves.
Thank you, Chairman. There are quite a few drawbacks to this, as the people in Burgess Hill will know. And I'd just like to weigh these up with members. There's the loss of the Martlets performance venue, which has not been replaced, the loss of the premises for the Burgess Hill creative community, which will not be replaced, and no affordable housing, 11 stories, loss of the driver's toilets not replaced, no PV panels, even on the car parks, and a very small bowling alley, which, as I understand, is because it's mentioned in the original summary application. But then on the other side, we have to look at the benefits, and the massive benefit here is finally an end to the blight, which the town has been suffering from for 8 or 10 years. We would have 172 households, people milling about in the town, actually people being there, which is what we're missing now. It's just empty, it's just a concrete slab. High density housing in a town centre is very much to be welcomed. We'd have a hotel, a 4-screen cinema. I think here less is more. We were going to get 10 screens, we didn't need them. We have the beloved Orion, which is 2 screens. I think the population growth can cope with another 4 screens. Cycle hub sounds great. Is it secure would be my question, because we have had a lot of problems with bike thefts. The Schregler nest boxes, great. Can they please be Swift compatible and on the north side? The multi-storey is being demolished, hurrah, finally. And there's a bigger public square, but question to the officers, is this really public? It's obviously architects call it public realm. Is it public? In other words, could there be a busker there? Could there be a political demonstration, or is it actually private? And I sent 2 members this week pictures of the 2 London plane trees, which are just south of New Look. Now, we only have 6 trees in the town centre, of which these are 2. There's going to be an urban heat island effect because we've got a lot of concrete coming in and glass. The trees will already do create a more comfortable microclimate. We've had 4 heat waves this summer. These trees, because they're mature, give us shade. Public spaces must be designed in keeping with climate change. They must keep up, basically. Why not a public fountain, indeed? And seating should be allocated in both sun and shade so people can choose. DP 26 says that we should protect trees that contribute to the character of the area. They do. New planting wouldn't. And DP 37, loss of trees that contribute to the visual amenity value or character of an area will not normally be permitted. So I'm actually going to suggest an amendment to paragraph 16 regarding the 2 plane trees. I'd like to insert a reference to them. I don't know whether you want me to read that now, Chairman. It's very short. We'll come back to it later.
We'll come back to that if we may. One point I would make is, you know, I understand your comments about the Martlets and other things, but they were considered in the original application and were not included. And so at this stage, we are considering the variation, not what's been lost as a result of the previous application. So can I just make that clear to members? Steve, did you wish to make any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. In terms of the cycle hub, I mean, yes, that will all be secure. The details of that are reserved, and it's actually included in the legal agreement as well. So further full details of that would be required. The square is a public square. It's not fenced off in any way, so it's a part of the public realm. And in terms of the trees, as the report acknowledges, it's obviously regrettable when any trees need to go, but that has been accepted by virtue of the extant consent. Those trees, in theory, could be felled tomorrow because of that planning permission. But what I would say with this scheme is that there will be an overall betterment in terms of the planting, because you've got a larger area, you've got this public square now that can be planted up. So overall, you're getting more than you would have done with the consented scheme. So on that individual issue, there's an improvement. And then I think if you look at the whole thing in the round, it is very clear to officers that this scheme needs to come forward, and the town centre does need to be redeveloped, because I think, as all the councillors have said, the centre of Burgess Hill isn't in a good condition at the moment, to put it mildly. So the benefits in the round clearly outweigh any harms, of which the loss of those trees that you referred to is one.
Thank you. Councillor Cherry.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Yes, the new proposals for the reduced leisure block, I think we are missing an enormous commercial opportunity here by designating simply a 4-lane bowling alley and 4 boutique screen cinemas. And I would question the viability of both of these. Bowling alley, it's already been mentioned, a 4-lane bowling alley would not be commercially viable. And we're not talking about Hollywood Bowl, 28 lanes, but there are smaller bowling alley providers, and actually I've found 3 locally, but all of them have 10 lanes. And also the cinema, the 4-screen cinema, as has already been mentioned, Burgess Hill has a vibrant 2-screen cinema, which it would be, obviously would affect their business. And also, we have to consider that the general public actually are not going to the cinema that much these days, because so much cinema films are being screened. And also, we have to consider proposed developments going on locally in Clare Hall. More cinemas there. We don't need all these cinemas. What we do need is an entertainment centre. And I found 3 actually local ones, one in Crawley, the Treasure Chest. There's another one called Out of Bounds in Angraming, I can never pronounce that, in West Sussex. And another organisation called 10 Pin, which has got lots of entertainment centres all over the UK, including Croydon, Chichester and Eastbourne. And what they provide is 10 pin bowling, but in addition to that, they have what all the youngsters like these days, laser tag, which provides a sort of 4D experience, escape rooms, they have soft play for younger children, arcade games, plus food and a bar. And all of them are very, very commercially successful. So I've got three questions to ask here. How have we come up with this proposal of these 4 cinemas and four-lane bowling alley? I mean, have we already got commercial businesses lined up for this current provision, or is this based on New River's market research? In which case, I think we should actually see this market research. Or, and this is what I think has happened, is this pure speculation that smaller units will succeed in drawing in customers and tenants where larger ones have failed? So I'd like, obviously I'm very much keen on all this going ahead, but I think we've really got to look at the content of our provision for our new leisure facilities. And let's get into the 21st century and look outside of the cinema market. There's a whole lot more out there. And just to finish, it amused me actually that the Out of Bounds, which is in Angermering, they actually offer in their bowling alley facilities for pensioners to come along and have 10-pin bowling at reduced rates during school term times. So this is an activity which virtually from birth to old age, 10-pin bowling will draw people in and will be a vibrant addition to Burgess Hill. I rest my case.
Can I just point out to councillors, we're considering the application in front of us, not what we want the developer to bring forward. Steve, would you?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Past me took the words out of my mouth. In terms of what we are here to assess, it's the planning merits of this particular scheme that the applicants have put forward. Bearing in mind, we're only looking at the changes from the previously approved scheme. So it's not for the members of the planning committee or for officers to seek to redesign the scheme. It's a matter for the applicant to come forward with a scheme that they think is commercially viable and can be delivered, which is what they've done. In terms of the issues regarding the proposed cinema and the existing cinema in the town, planning system isn't there to seek to prevent competition between different businesses and so on, so that there wouldn't be any grounds to resist the application on that basis. We're looking at the land use merits of the scheme and whether this is appropriate. So we can't redesign the scheme. It's the issue for committee is whether this scheme is acceptable or not. Looking at it in the scope of what already has planning permission. As I've said, and it's in the committee report, I think all of the benefits here, the additional residential units in a highly sustainable location, complete redevelopment of a derelict, blighted site. I think it's very clear that all of those weigh very heavily in favour of the application.
Thank you. Councillor Henwood.
Thank you, Chairman. I wish to address my comments to 12.2, where it says, assess the issues that are relevant in relation to the condition that are proposed to be amended. One condition, which is really important to be amended, is the size of the public realm, which I fully support. But given that that has increased, I think we need to look at two issues which were affected by that change in condition. Although the extant permission demolished the 2 plane trees I think given that this realm, public realm has increased, it would look to me like we certainly should point out the concern and the necessity in a public realm to have shade and climate change, as we've already said, drought, etc. The second issue which needs to be addressed, given that it was not proposed in the extant permission, is the provision of public toilets. At the moment, every town centre should have public toilets. If we're expecting the public realm to be increased usage by our community, then we need to provide services for the community. All right, increased footfall, visitors, we have disabled community members in wheelchairs, etc. I'm sorry, how many of you have gone into a cafe, walked through, past the customers, past the till, past the cafe, and used their public toilet, so-called, this has happened, and then walked out again and not felt slightly embarrassed? If you're in a wheelchair or if you're in a mobile walker, you're going to feel exceedingly embarrassed and conspicuous. I think if we want a vibrant town centre, it is essential that we have public conveniences. And if I go back, justification for this, if I look at DP 25, community facilities and local services, it is in our district plan that that's what we should provide. And I feel like Mid-Sussex District Council, we are in, I think I can dare say, a joint venture. Therefore, it should be part of Mid-Sussex District Council's responsibility to adhere to, in particular, that particular policy, Chairman. And I think both of those issues are related to the change of the condition in increasing the size of the public realm and expecting community engagement in the public realm, which I support. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, well, let's say the public toilets weren't in the original application and they're not in this one, so we can't, but there is an arrangement with one of the cafes in the town. They are actually paid to allow members of the public to use their facilities. And I think as part of the application, once the development takes place, I think officers or the developers will consider asking other suitable premises to have the same facility for members of the public. Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Chairman. I think one of the key aspects of this whole application is the date of the extant application, which is 2019. Now, 2019 was a very different world to the one that we live in today. Since 2019, we had COVID, which essentially was 2 years. We've had the war in Ukraine, we've got wars in the Middle East and everything, all of which has made prices go up and it made retail sales largely go down. So it's between those two aspects, it's made the retail and leisure centre some of the most challenging times forever to be in business, basically. And a lot of business are really struggling. So what is a fact, which is relentless, is that we have not increasing population who need housing. And the housing crisis is getting worse almost by the day. So I can understand how New River, and I'm presuming they've done their sums, I'm not going to argue with their sums, that, you know, the reduced leisure offering and the reduced and the increased residential offering follows trend, frankly, and, you know, this is what governs development to a large extent. In these situations, I think you've got to take on board what the positives are, and one of the positives, looking at the plan there, is the fact you've got a greater external amenity area, which I think is a bonus to Burgess Hill, because it hasn't got an awful lot of such spaces. So all in all, you know, I think we've got to be realistic in this, that, you know, a 4-lane bowling alley and 4-screen cinema is better than what's there now, and as well as the housing. So overall, I think this is a positive thing and should be supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, I am conscious that it is now 5 minutes to 5, understanding orders, if we're going to go beyond 3 hours, I have to get the minutes of the committee's approval. Are members happy that we continue
Agreed.
with the rest of the agenda? Thank you very much. Councillor Bates.
Thank you. Councillor Eve stole my opening line about less is more, famous architectural statement. But yeah, I mean, it's very surprising to be looking at this application on a reduction basis. Normally it's always more, isn't it? But just one point, because I've heard all the discussion about the public toilets. We parked in Haywards Heath a public toilet, bespoke, with disabled access, in a car park, which you could do there, and it was done by the district council. So I would just urge you to try and pursue that. I mean, I was in Burgess Hill, and I did use a public toilet. I was sent to there by the town council. Admittedly, it's not very accessible, but there were public toilets. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Do you want to make any more comments before we move to the vote, Steve?
I think the only thing I would say that, repeat myself slightly, but the benefits in this case clearly outweigh any harms. The development does need to come forward, and clearly it's come forward in this manner for a reason. If the extant scheme had been viable and could have been delivered, then it would have been, but it isn't. That's why we've got this revised scheme and an opportunity to move forward and redevelop the town centre. So I think we should
Thank you.
approve, Chairman.
Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you, Chair. I'm fully supportive. Can I move to approve? Go to a vote, please.
Thank you very much. Can I have a seconder? Right, Councillor Peacock. Right, can we move to the votes, please? One member still to vote. Right, the vote's now closed. 11 votes in favour, none against, no abstentions. The recommendation is carried on. Paragraph 3.1 is carried. Thank you very much. Right, we move straight on to item 8, and I do apologise to the people that have come to speak that it is running so late. Land at Eastwood Farm, Shaveswood Lane, Albourne. So we've Rachel's already joined us. You want to get on holiday, don't you?
Thank you, Chair.
Right, so we'll go straight into Rachel's presentation, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, members should refer to the update sheet, which includes recommended conditions and informatives from Nature Space Partnership in relation to Great Crested Newts and a levels condition, and also further comments received from the South Downs National Park Authority, who are maintaining their original objection. So, moving on to the first slide, the proposal that we have before us is at Eastwood Farm, Shaveswood Lane in Albourne, in West Sussex, and it is for a change of use of the land to equestrian. Oh, sorry. So it's a change of use of the land to equestrian, erection of equestrian facilities including indoor arena, stables, outdoor arena, horse walker, resurfacing of existing track, creation of balancing and ecology pond, together with associated earthworks and provision of a soft landscaping scheme. So moving on to the second slide, you can see the location plan here with the application site outlined in red and the remainder of the land in blue, which is under the same ownership. Shaveswood Lane is situated to the east, where the existing access is located and will be retained. Wickwood's Country Club, which is the David Lloyd Health Club and Hotel, joins the site to the south. Albourne Wine Estate lies to the northeast, and approximately 400 metres away and to the north of the site is Honeybourne Farm and Oakfield Cottage. There is a public footpath, 2545, which lies around 400 metres to the north of the site. Just up here, up there. There is intervening vegetation between the site and these properties and the footpath. To the east of Eastwood Farm is the Singing Hills Golf Club and Restaurant. This slide shows the proposed layout of the site with the new pond furthest north, the outdoor arena, courtyard stables, new indoor arena and stables and horse walker in the southwestern corner. The levels fall away and downhill very gradually from north to south and across the site in an east-westerly direction. For the purposes of planning policy, the site lies within the countryside and outside of the built-up area boundary as defined in the district plan. The access and driveway lies within the South Downs National Park. The South Downs National Park and ancient woodland and buffer lie to the east and southern boundaries of the application site. Slide 3 shows the proposed plans and elevations of the courtyard stables, and it shows the building. This particular building is a timber-clad building above a brick plinth, corrugated roof, and aluminium windows. And the details of this building are set out in 10.6 of your officer report. Slide 4 shows the proposed plans and elevations of the indoor arena. This slide shows the internal layout and elevations. The materials will be the same as the proposed courtyard stables. This building is described in more detail at 10.5 of the committee report. And this slide shows the western elevation of the indoor arena, which faces towards the horse walker. This slide is of the proposed horse walker. Again, the materials will match with the courtyard stables and indoor arena. The details are described in 10.8 of your officer report. Slide 7 shows the landscape plan and the general arrangement of the site with the landscaping proposals and the proposed woodland plantings surrounding the buildings. This slide shows the photographs of the access via Shaveswood Lane. The first photograph is viewed from the sorry, apologies. It's not as per my photographs. Anyway, okay, so I think there is a slide missing. So the first photograph shows the access from inside the site. And then photographs 2 and 3 are showing the track that are within the site that lead down to the fields where the buildings are proposed. And this track is the part of the site that's within the South Downs National Park. So these two photos, the first photo is the southern half of the field where the proposed buildings would be, which is falling away to the south. And then you can see all the existing woodland and screening, which is the ancient woodland and national park, which is beyond the site. And the second photograph is of the northern half of the field where the balancing pond will be. And at the moment there is a track between these two fields which separate them, but that will disappear as part of the proposed scheme. So the recommendation is that permission be granted subject to the conditions listed in Appendix A. The main issues for consideration are set out in the officer report. Members will be aware of legislation and that it requires the application to be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material circumstances indicate otherwise. It is considered that the application is in accordance with the development plan and that this is the proper starting point for decision making. The development plan in this instance consists of the Mid-Sussex District Plan, a Site Allocations Development Plan document and the Albourne Neighbourhood Plan. However, the Council also must have regard to other material considerations, including the National Planning Policy Framework, in determining this application. As set out in your officer's report, the planning issues for consideration are principal, design and visual impact on the countryside, residential amenity, highways, flood risk and drainage, ecology and biodiversity net gain, sustainability and the Ashdown Forest. It is necessary, like with any planning application, to weigh up the planning balance in terms of the issues and the weight attributed to each. The principle of this proposal was considered to be acceptable. Policy DP12 in the Mid-Sussex District Plan is the starting point, and this policy allows for development in the countryside, provided it maintains or, where possible, enhances the quality of the rural and landscape character. DP14 supports sustainable growth and the vitality of the rural economy. The application has demonstrated the need for the provision of high-level training facilities for show jumping and the creation of equine employment it will support. In terms of design, the applicant has sought to create a cohesive architectural solution, and the layout of buildings have been arranged on a consolidated footprint, and their external materials are sympathetic with other rural buildings in the locality. In terms of siting and visual impact, the buildings are proposed at the southern and lower part of the site, and the largest building, the indoor arena, would be further cut into the ground to lessen its physical presence. The proposed buildings will be out of sight of the road, and given the intervening vegetation, there will be limited visibility from public vantage points to the north, and only on a short section of the footpath and from the adjoining farm. The building would be heavily screened to the south, east and western sides by existing woodland. However, the proposed built development would not encroach on ancient woodland, nor the SDNP, the National Park, which lies to the eastern and southern boundaries of the application site. The proposals also include 0.64 hectares of native species of woodland planting, ground flora seeding and 211 linear metres of native hedge and orchard tree planting, as well as a large pond to the north. The Council's landscape consultant raises no objections to the proposal and considers that in year 15 there will be a slight positive effect on the landscape resource. This is considered to be positive in the planning balance, although it should be noted that the SDNPA has objected to the proposal, which is negative in the planning balance. It is considered that the proposal will maintain and enhance the quality of the rural and landscape character and conserve the setting of the National Park, all in accordance with relevant policies. In terms of residential amenity, the closest residential property is 400 metres to the north of the application site, and there will be some views of the proposed buildings from this adjoining farm. However, the owners are fully supportive of the application, which is also positive in the planning balance. In terms of highways and transport, they have no objection. The existing access, which is set back from Shaveswood Lane, would be utilised. The proposed privately used equestrian facility is likely to have a neutral impact compared to its former agricultural use. In terms of traffic movements, parking and turning within the site is also satisfactory and in accordance with standards and regulations. This is positive in the planning balance. The flood risk and drainage engineers have raised no objection, and surface water management is achieved through the proposed balancing pond with additional rain gardens in and around the proposed buildings and menage. They ensure that the outflow from the surface water drainage is kept within the natural field runoff rates for the site. This is considered positive in the planning balance. The landscaping and planting proposals are extensive and twice over meets the biodiversity net gain requirements. There are no objections received from the Council's landscape and ecology consultants at Place Services. The proposal is also considered to meet 3 overarching objectives of sustainability in the MPPF in terms of the economic, social and environmental factors. It will provide employment for local equestrian-related jobs, and this purpose-built centre will contribute socially as a training facility. The comprehensive landscaping and biodiversity proposals will environmentally also have a positive effect, and especially in the long term. The development is not considered to have any significant effects alone or in combination on the Ashdown Forest from the proposed development. Therefore, taking all these points into consideration, there are compelling reasons to approve this application. The scheme is considered acceptable and is compliant with policy criteria of the adopted development plan. It is recommended that permission be granted, and that brings my presentation to an end, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Right, we had 2 speakers, and I don't think they were in the room when I made the statement previously. You have 3 minutes each. I will try and indicate when there's 1 minute left. And if you're still speaking at 3 minutes, I'd ask that you wrap your presentation up in 1 sentence. So I'm assuming I've got the right order here. Catherine Sadler, are you speaking first? The 3 minutes will start once you start speaking.
Good afternoon, councillors. I am the planning consultant on this application. Thank you for taking the time to visit the site on Monday and for considering this application today. As you have heard, this proposal is for a state-of-the-art equestrian facility for the Cullen Senior family. Their son Luca rides, trains and competes nationally and internationally and has a string of very talented show jumpers. The proposed facilities will enable him and his international trainer rider, Joe Clayton, to have a base in which to train and keep their horses within sight and sound of their family home. Joe and Luca have recently qualified for the National Championships and Horse of the Year show. They have also both qualified for the Brussels Steffex Masters show in Belgium at the end of August, which is widely regarded as one of the most prestigious events in the international show jumping calendar. This is a major achievement for both riders. They both have had a very successful couple of weeks at Hickstead in June and July, competing in multiple national events. Luca is looking to compete for Team GB with the ultimate aim of the under-25s at the London Excel Horse Show. In order to support horses of this high level and calibre, top-class facilities are vital to their support and their training. It is imperative that the horses can be kept fit all year round in all weathers. Policy DP12 of the district plan allows development in the countryside, provided it maintains or where possible enhances the quality of rural and landscape character. It has been demonstrated that there are very limited views of the proposed site, as it is surrounded on 3 sides by woodland. It has also been demonstrated within the landscape assessment submitted with the application that there will be a neutral effect at year 10 and a slight positive effect at year 15. Place Services, your landscape consultant, has agreed with our landscape assessment. Indeed, your own planning officer considers that the landscape character, setting of the South Downs National Park and the dark night sky zone would be conserved and enhanced in accordance with policies
1 minute left.
DP18 and policies ALC 1 and 2 of the neighbourhood plan. This scheme also proposes 24.5% increase in biodiversity net gain, well above the 10% required, through woodland planting, provision of a traditional orchard, native hedgerows, ground flora seeding, new ecology pond and improved grassland habitat, all in accordance with policy DP38. Policy DP14 also supports sustainable growth and the vitality of the rural economy. Development would create employment for local people through the construction phase and once built. Rural workers would be employed directly and indirectly to support the horses kept on site. I therefore hope that you are able to support this planning application and thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Right, the second speaker, is Matthew Coomber.
Thank you, Chairman.
And again, 3 minutes will start when you start speaking.
First, I'd like to thank Rachel and the LPA for their time, hard work and care over the last 12 months, working with the project team to develop and hone this incredible scheme. I would also like to thank you for the committee members taking the time to see the site and consider this exciting application. Eastwood Farm Equestrian Facility is an exceptionally landscape-led architectural solution, providing the necessary facilities for an up-and-coming international rider and his trainer. The facility includes an indoor arena, secure stabling, spread over 2 wings, separate subservient courtyard block, outdoor arena and horse walker. These facilities form the foundations for an equestrian centre comparable to other locally approved schemes such as Brantridge Park, which was set within the curtilage of listed building and national landscape. The proposal is landscape-led, with design carefully considered to sit naturally within its surroundings, mirroring other rural and agricultural buildings in the area. The site is very well screened from the road and has limited visibility from public viewpoints, with the only direct view being from the neighbouring farm, whose owners are fully supportive of this application. The entire development avoids the ancient woodland buffer, maintaining a respectful distance and ensuring no encroachment on protected areas. The proposed site has previously been used to keep horses. The new proposal brings the land back into purposeful and beneficial use. The scheme retains the land as a single holding rather than a fragmented, which is viewed positively by long-standing neighbours. The rural agricultural typology contextually relates to both the immediate and wider setting of the site, including Oakfield Farm, located west of Eastwood Farm. The main arena and courtyard stables are to receive vertical timber cladding and corrugated sheet covering, typical of an agricultural barn or outbuilding. The vertical scorched timber cladding will be allowed to patina, further dissolving the building into the surrounding landscape. Eastwood Farm Equestrian Facility will provide an incredible opportunity for local employment, both during and post-construction. The construction phase will use local craftsmen, trades, consultants, suppliers, with a huge benefit to the local community. The ongoing maintenance and running will continue to provide opportunities for local trades and suppliers. Supporting this application is not only about the built form and architectural solution, but about the wider scheme which embraces and promotes harmony, cohesion and interaction between architecture, landscape and users. Eastwood Farm Equestrian will provide an exceptional facility for the family to educate, train and develop Luca over many years to come. I hope the members are able to support and be part of this amazing scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't suppose there's anything you want to comment on, Rachel, is there?
No, thank you.
Right, the floor is open to members. Councillor Sweatman.
I'll let Councillor Jackson first, as I was going to recommend approval,
Okay, thank
Chairman.
you. Councillor Jackson.
Just very briefly, on section 1247 refers to the South Downs National Park dark skies policy, and this particular site is just outside the dark sky zone. But I did notice in section 1248 the outdoor lights will be kept to a minimum with luminaires designed to have downward light spill. So if that's kept to, I'm quite happy with this in terms of dark skies policy.
I think in terms of lighting, would I be correct in saying that the gym centre was actually in the national park?
The gym centre?
The David Lloyd's.
Oh, yes, it is, yes.
David Lloyd's.
Yes.
David Lloyd, and the lighting there was... yes, anyway. Councillor Henwood.
Thank you, Chairman. In the update sheet, there's quite a long, 2 pages, and in particular one comments from the National Park. I mean, how significant, it says it is significant, what kind of weight should be given to this? It's 2 pages. No weight, or is it what? I'm just curious, Chairman, of your opinion, please.
But it's an additional condition, isn't it, the first part? The first page and a half is an additional condition, and then the last section is an informative. So these are additions to the actual proposal.
So implications of the change in the land use, that's all
Rachel,
a condition.
do you want to
Is that
comment
a condition?
about those
That's a lot of
specifically?
So the South Downs National Park Authority have provided further comments, but like with any application, I mean, their comments are maintaining their original objection. The South Downs National Park Authority also have their own application on this, and the only part of the application that's within the national park is the track. So it's not where the buildings are being proposed. But that said, they still are maintaining an objection, but it's like with any application, you have to weigh up all the various issues and then attribute weight to each one of them. And as I've said in my summary, there are compelling reasons to approve this, and there's a note that the majority of the issues weigh in favour of supporting this application.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's very helpful when we do these planning visits to get a bigger picture of what's proposed, and I'm quite happy with it. The fact that it's contained and concealed, I think it'll be less intense use than the neighbouring activity. So I'm supportive of this.
Thank you. Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you, Chairman. It's an excellent officer report, if I may say. Thank you. A great design, going to be a super facility. I'm fully supportive. Can I move to approve, please?
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cherry, thank you. And if we can move to the votes, please. Right, the vote is closed. 11 in favour, none against, no abstentions. So that recommendation and the Appendix A is carried. I understand Councillor Henwood is standing down from the committee after today, so I'd like to thank you for your contributions. And I'd like to thank all members and officers for their attendance today and also their patience. I'm sorry it's been a long meeting, but I think it was necessary in view of the proposal that was before us earlier. So thank you very much, and we'll see you all again in September. I close the meeting at 5:21. Thank you very much.